afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Loveji and myself, I would like to welcome you to another FEZANA Religion Education Committee talk. But before we start, let me give you a few announcements. If you are not a member of our Google group and would like to join, please put your email in the chat box and we'll go ahead and join you to the Google group. Also, we have a Google Doc where teachers can share contact information to provide one another support. I will include the link in the chat box a little bit later on, so you can access that as well. FEZANA Religion Education Committee has launched an essay contest for ages 11 to 14, highlighting the importance of protecting the environment in Zoroastrianism. So I'm sure you received the flyer through your organization or through the Google group. Please share the opportunity with your students. Also, we are excited to have a tech committee to help us update our website. We would like to thank Ms. Afrid Mistry and Mr. Mehrawan Darawala for volunteering as members. Also, we hope to organize a religion education committee, Zoom committee to organize and to manage the Zoom talks for religion teachers. We have a wonderful volunteer, but we need more teachers to join in. So if you're interested, please let us know. But now we would like to thank our wonderful guest speaker today, Mr. Firdosh Mehta, and two of our lovely religion teachers, Ms. Afrid Mistry, who will introduce Mr. Mehta, and Ms. Triti Purbahrami, who will manage the Q&A section of the talk. I would like to ask Afrid and Triti to please take a few minutes introducing themselves. Let us know where you live, what organization you teach at, what age group, what is your profession, and if you're involved in something that you think may be of interest to the other teachers, please let us know. So, Triti, would you like to go first?
Sure, thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Triti Purbahrami. I have been kind of learning and teaching for about 30 years now, which is shocking. And I started in Vancouver with the Zoroastrian Society of British Columbia. Then I moved to Southern California, and about a little over a year ago, I moved to Northern California. So now I'm associated with the center in San Jose. And I moved, my husband Peter, myself, and our two teenagers, Niku and Mina, moved here because I was recruited away from Caltech to the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation. I'm a science communications officer, and I enjoy teaching high school and middle school students because I really enjoy making Zarathushti's message relevant to their daily lives and learning from them when we have discussions. I'm looking forward to our Q&A section.
Thank you so much, Triti. I've had the pleasure of being in core education committee at California Zoroastrian Center with Triti, and I've learned so much from her. We miss you, Triti. We hope you come back. Afrid, would you please go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Afrid Mistry, and I live in Toronto, Canada. I'm also a religion class teacher, and I have been teaching for about 23 years. Right now, I'm teaching ages 10 to 12, but in the past, I've taught ages 6 all the way to 15. And I'm associated with two organizations here, the Zoroastrian Society of Ontario and the OZCF, the Ontario Zoroastrian Community Foundation. And because we have such a large group and we are so spread out across the Greater Toronto area, our religion classes are actually broken up into two separate locations. We have one west of Toronto, and then we have one east of Toronto, and they take place on the same day one in the morning on the west side and one in the afternoon on the east side. So we have quite a large group of kids, and they are in 5 different levels on each side. So we have about 10 teachers and maybe about 5 to 6 assistant teachers in the program.
It's a great problem to have.
Thank you, Afri. Would you please go ahead and
Sure.
introduce our wonderful speakers so we can get started? Thank you to both of you.
Sure. So our speaker today is Firdosh Mehta. Firdosh is a graduate professional mechanical engineer from Sangli and Massachusetts. He is the founding member and past president of both Zoroastrian Association of Alberta and FEZANA, and the president of the Zoroastrian Society of British Columbia. Firdosh is also the founding member and past chair of the Edmonton Interfaith Center. He has made presentations on various topics on Zoroastrian faith to Darby mayors, schools, universities, churches, temples, and worship centers globally, including representing us at the International Religious and Peace Conferences in Barcelona and London. He's also been at the Parliament of World Religions in Salt Lake City and Toronto. Firdosh has conducted children's Sunday school classes in Edmonton, Dallas, Calgary, Vancouver, and he's even been invited as a guest speaker in Delhi and Dubai. Firdosh has received various community service awards, including the Vision Foundation Award in 2011 India, and the Outstanding Zarathushti Award from FEZANA in 2012. Firdosh continues to volunteer for our community and for interfaith services. He served on the board of the ARGBC and is the chair of the ZSBC Interfaith and Library Committees. I've had the privilege of working very closely with Firdosh for many, many years while he was on the FEZANA executive and when he was FEZANA president. And today, Firdosh will speak to us about how to make religion education attractive to young Zarathushtis. So let's give Firdosh a warm welcome.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. It is so nice to see all such wonderful people interested in what I have to say, but I promise you I will make it shorter than before the milkman comes tomorrow morning. So the important part we are talking about today is how to make religion education attractive. The what part is not very emphasized in this talk. Of course, parts of the what part I will have to use as examples so that I can share the how part. So please bear with me. When I talk about the issues, they will be just sketchy, but I'm going to try and bring out more so the methodology that I have used for these years. I've been doing this for many, many years. The first time I got into this at the FEZANA level was many years ago. In the early days of FEZANA, we had an AGM at the Los Angeles CZC Darby Mayor, and we had a dinner program in the evening, and I was approached by an Iranian lady who I came to know later, who was very, very famous and well-known and highly respected in the Iranian community. She was Farangir Sharok. She took me by the arm, and I was kind of embarrassed for somebody, stranger who I did not know, pulls me away from my chair. She took me to her table and made me sit down on the empty chair next to hers. And on the other side of her was Professor Kekashro Irani. I hope most of you know who he was. In my heart, he is more than just a guru. He is a character, a person, a personality so vast and beyond most of our comprehension that we are absolutely fortunate to have him when he was here with us. I sat down and she said, Firdosh, I want you to be the co-chair of the FEZANA Religion Education Committee with Professor Kekashro Irani, because I don't want him to do all the other nitty-gritty work. I want him to do the teaching, and you do all the management and other stuff. And I told myself, wow, how lucky can I be? And ever since then, at least from the point of view of FEZANA and member associations, I got into this. Otherwise, also, I have done the religion education part, many different non-Zoroastrian venues and locations. So with that idea that we will try and see how we do things, I'm not going to try and get into curriculums, age groups, what to teach when, at what age. I think over the years, most people may not realize there is so much material that has been created within North America. Lots of associations have come up with their own ways and formalized things of teaching their children. That a good example of what part you can get in the next slide that I'm going to tell you. So starting off, I would like to give greetings to everyone from supernatural British Columbia. This place is so awesome. We call it God's country. And that is why where you don't have to dial 1 to talk to our Mazda. It is a local call from here. I'm grateful to our organizers, Dr. Lauji and Artemis, for our session today, where the focus is on how to make religion education. So I will discuss more about the methods, like I mentioned earlier. And right away, I want to introduce you 2 books that have been published and have been with us for a long, long time. I've used them very well with my children in different classes, different locations, and I've used even a couple of the young boys to learn and give the tests and exams reviewed by a Mobed, so they qualify for the Boy Scouts religion badge to complete the number of badges they would need to become President Scout or the Gold Cord or whatever. And amazingly, you don't need to go far to understand or know who is involved with these 2 books. It is Dr. Lauji Kama, who has worked in both these areas with the books, and he was involved in the creation of them. So please get these to refer. I have them in my library. I have it at home. I'm sure your libraries should have a copy of that. Go through that and see if you would like the syllabus, or it will give you some organized approach to run the class. The principles I focus on is the so-called nowadays term as equity, diversity, and inclusion. Of course, what we talk about today is stuff as far as human nature is concerned. You can go back to Babylon and it is the same thing. They can give new titles, new names, but the concepts are very similar. Human values are still the same. Over time, we can have technology and we can be very, very efficient with technology, but technology cannot change good stuff that we can do. That we have to come up with ourselves. I want to focus on promoting education by, first of all, thinking. You are obligated as a Zoroastrian to think. Well, how do you get to good thoughts without thinking? You have to be open-minded, inquisitive, gain knowledge, reflect on what you have learned and understand. Don't just accept anything from anybody as gospel truth. Listen to people, but again, later on, try and analyze that yourself. Does not matter, it may take you days, months, years, but ultimately the concept that you want to get cleared in your head will come through your understanding on the inside. This inner awakening is what is important for us to be good justice. The knowledge, then you're reflective, you have a balanced approach, you're principled. Just don't waver here and there all over the place, but be courageous sometimes to stand up and be counted. and be a good communicator to people around you, especially to the children who are there for you to be given the guidance. And so one of the things I do with my children, I have all of these stuff that I show you slides. Each one is like a picked out of a whole PowerPoint program that runs at about 45 minutes each. So I have all this many materials and somehow PowerPoint has been my favorite way to do it because it is a good way to kind of put it on a screen or the wall and everybody can see it rather than just sit and talk. And we can have pictures and a whole bunch of attractions that can keep the children's attention. I do the short prayers from the Cordovesta, and I am not involved in teaching children to memorize the prayers. I used to do that, but I had some bad experiences, so I gave that up. Now, if a parent wants their child to learn prayers for their Navjot, I separately go to their homes every Sunday morning for a year or a year and a half to prepare the child with the father and or the mother present over there, and I teach them, but I emphasize on the proper pronunciation and the meaning. To me, meaning of the prayers is most important. I just don't understand how people can say, no, you really don't need to know what our prayers mean. It is, the vibration or a whole bunch of other things. Fine, that could be there. I'm not knocking that. I'm not saying that is wrong. But I personally do not know how to get into things properly unless I understand what I'm doing. And therefore, for the prayers to mean something to me, I have to know their meaning. And then it makes it imperative of why I should pray, what I can get out of prayers, the solace, the inner peace. I do not use the prayers to ask for, can I get this and can I get that? And if I get this, I will do this in return. That is not what prayers are for me. They are just a level of bringing yourself in tune with the collective force of good so that we can create more good things. So I try to let the children know that why we should pray is to not only have to do things, but it's a kind of commitment and discipline. Just like you have discipline in so many other things that we will talk about. So I introduce them with different, but very short prayers that we don't do on a daily basis. I do have Yathavaryo and Hashem Vahu and Imna Mazda and Jasamavange Mazda and all that. But I do pick some unusual prayers so that I can get them to understand a few Avesta words also. One of them is this Piruz Bad, Karu Avidya Vahdine Masdayasna. It means, may the religion of the worship of wisdom remain victorious forever. One important thing I do in the translation is I do translate the word Mazda as wisdom in the prayer. For example, in the first one, I would not say, may the religion of the worship of Mazda remain victorious. That is said already, Mazda Yasnan, in the Avesta part. But I do translate each word for what it is, so it does not get mixed out. The next short one, these are only 2-line, 3-line poems, even shorter than Yathavaryo. Nemo Vahu, Nemo Vahishtam, Zarathustra Gaitabhyo. Oh Zarathustra, prayer is good, prayer is best for all the people of the world. So this is how the children now relate to Vahu as good, Vahishtam best, etc., etc. The relationship of, and the word Nemo, obviously, because it comes twice, also comes twice in the translation as prayer. So this is how they learn a little bit, a few words about Avesta to keep it interesting. Today we'll try to have some discussions on common misconceptions and misunderstandings and how to explain them to the different people in different ways. Name of our religion, this is a very, very complex thing. With all due respect, I've gone around the world, even places like New Delhi and other parts, including North America. And one of the simple things I've asked people to start off or get the ball rolling, get them to start thinking in the spiritual religious sense is, what is the name of our religion? And we'll talk about it. Then we'll talk about being fire worshippers. I'll talk a little bit about the sadra or sudre, or pushti, and the topi or the scarf that we use to cover our heads while we enter a place of worship or while we are doing the prayer during that time. So I asked the students, what is the name of our religion? Common answers I get is, name of our religion is Parsi, Zarathushti, Zoroastrian, Zoroastrian, Zarathushti, all bunch of names like that, but not the right one according to my understanding. I'm not saying these are wrong. Please, just because I say it's a beautiful day, I'm not saying it's a lousy night. Don't take the opposite of everything I say. If you have concerns, ask me. I will give you the honest answer. So I tell them that a scriptural name of our religion is Mazda Yasna. If anybody asks you what is the name of your religion, it is Mazda Yasna. Of course, for people around us who are non-Zoroastrians, it is kind of easy to say we are Zoroastrians, etc. For example, in the second line of Dasame Avange Mazda prayer, which most of us do on a daily basis, we say, Mazda Yasno Ami. We admit, I am a worshipper of wisdom. And Mazda Yasno Zarathushtis, a worshipper of wisdom as taught by Zarathustra or as revealed by Zarathustra. So this is where right away in Jasmaya Vange Mazda, which is the basic prayer, and we say 3 times over there, in the Jasmaya Vange Mazda prayer, Jasmaya Vange Mazda 3 times. What are we saying 3 times? We are requesting, come to me, come to my assistance, so come to my help or aid, O Mazda. Jasmaya Vange Mazda. And then we ask for Mazda's help by first admitting that we are worshippers. Another false belief is that Zoroastrians are fire worshippers. Zoroastrians do not worship fire, but it is the symbol of the ultimate truth it represents. And people talk about fire as holy and nice and all. There's nothing wrong with all interpretations that people put, but according to my understanding, from the Gothic understanding of the word fire, is essentially the only way in the ancient times human beings could create light or brilliance or brightness, something you could see as against darkness where you could not see. Of course, there is natural light in the sun, moon, stars, but in the man-made part, it had to be the creation of fire in those days before we had any modern forms of producing light. Light or brightness as opposed to darkness is considered illuminating, therefore enlightening. Even the word enlightenment has the word light in it, as it is a symbolic form of representative truth, which leads to knowledge, awareness, and therefore righteousness, which is all grouped in a very, very complex but important word that we understand as Asha. And we have, therefore, the law of Asha, or the law of righteousness, that good will bring more good, evil will bring more evil. So wisdom is the application of knowledge which is gained from education, learning, experimentation, analysis, etc. So the knowledge part becomes extremely important to Zarathushti people, because from that, how are we going to express our wisdom if we don't have the education, learning, or the knowledge? And Zoroastrians are well known for setting up institutions such as schools, colleges, libraries, research. This is a religious duty of ours to establish schools, colleges, libraries. Not because we have to or we need to. We Parsis from India, and please understand, I will use words that are more readily known to people, have gone to Iran and set up schools in Iran. Why was that so important to us? Because we know that education is the fundamentally most important thing to get to, so that we can learn and apply those principles. The two opposing forces of strength of manu and the good force of anger manu. The bad force, anger manu, originate in the human mind. Please understand, these forces of collective force of good and collective force of evil originate in the human mind and are not from nature. They don't come from outside. Now, I'm not saying your mind or my mind, but some mind. It has to be originated in a mind. That such as natural disasters, therefore, cannot be considered to be evil or bad unless they are made by human beings in their mind first and spread around. Oh, you go bomb someplace and you create a disaster. We all know it's not a natural disaster, but a human being has made that. And the same thing goes for others. And an important story that I read about such application of wisdom to knowledge during natural disasters and not blaming the forces of good for such disasters. Oh, why did I have to suffer all this? No, it is just have the knowledge. The story of the tsunami that started in the Indian Ocean from Indonesia, the waters came all across the ocean, Indian Ocean, all the way to Africa and to Madagascar. Parts of Madras experienced that. All the islands in the Indian Ocean did that. And the story goes that when the tsunami occurs, it is an underground earthquake by movement of the tectonic plates. This movement immediately creates waters to recede and go into the ocean, creating an excessive amount of low tide. This low tide, obviously the water moving away, suddenly traps the fish into the shores and rocks. And people now find it is so easy to go and pick up this fish rather than have to throw out nets and collect them and work hard. This is like the low-hanging fruit. So they go and pick up this, and the story goes that an old elderly chief guy in the village said to the people, no, 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 don't get tempted. Don't go to pick up the fish. Don't waste time. Turn around and run to the highest place you can. Climb the highest hill, etc., and be at the highest point you can. And of course, some people kind of did not listen. Some felt that, oh, this old man, what does he know? That kind of stuff. And they decided to stick around, collect the fish, not realizing now when the wave comes back, it comes with a greater force. And that is the tsunami that will get you. Those who had gone with this old man up the hill saved themselves. Yes, natural disasters can be there, but there is nothing to stop you from being educated and use your good mind and use your wisdom to survive. And you can also survive that. I also teach a little bit about the Kashti ritual, the Sudre Pushi or the Navjot prayers as we call them. Here is a picture of Sudre and Kashti around it with that reef knot. And this reef knot is a very important knot that I like to explain a little bit. The reef knot, it is easy to open. You can just grab the two ends and push it through, and it loosens up, and then you can. This saves the Kashti from damage, makes it last longer. You don't have to pull the knot out with your nails and therefore damage the small, fragile woolen threads. This reef knot, amazingly, I found a picture of an Egyptian statue dating 2350 BC. That's 4,350 years ago, depicting the reef knot securing on a belt. This is when my family took the trip to Egypt, and we saw a whole bunch of places on our tours with the tombs of the pharaohs and this and that. It was an interesting picture that I saw in their museum. Imagine that, 4,350 years ago, they used to use the reef knot. So, like I said, certain things are still going on because they are good. You don't have to change things just for the sake of change if you're making an improvement. So now I come to this situation and get myself in trouble by teaching the children about the kasti that is made out of the 72 threads, and why 72 and not 62 and 82. And that is based on the yasna ceremony that was compiled and canonized finally during Sasanian time. Most of our literature was lost post-Alexander, and the gathering was done even in the Parthian or Ashkanian empires, and then promoted further in the Sasanian times to the point that it was fixed up that this is how our prayer is going to be in the yasna, and it had parts of whole bunch of things, different yas, gathas, many areas of our prayers were collected that were all kind of dispersed and made into a one ritual that is even today decided in the Agyaris and Atasvarams and other places. That makes it our very basic ceremony. For those of you who mind of use Gujarati more than Avesta or Pallavi, in Gujarati, the Yasna ceremony, which originally is the Yazishin ceremony, becomes the Ijashne ceremony. So to the Parsis in India, it is more of an Ijashne ceremony. So I teach my kids about the 72 strands, and that was done by Adurbad Maharaspan, was the final chief priest, Mobedan Mobed, who canonized the prayer into Yasna, and with the 72 different paragraphs depicted by the 72 strands as a symbolism of what it is. Remember, we are all human beings are creatures of symbols. We symbolize everything. Why do I wear a gold ring on my left hand and on my certain finger? Well, I'm married. That is my marriage ring. I wear my engineer's ring on my right small finger. So we are very symbolic that way. So I want you to study this picture. There are two questions I'm going to ask on that. One is, who is the person on the left side, which surprisingly many of our people don't know, never even bother to find out. And of course, on the right, your right, is Zarathustra. And I have used this picture because we have that in just about every Agyari, Atiswaram, Darbe Mayor, people's homes all over the place. And then I asked them, with this in mind, did Zarathustra wear the kasti same as what you are wearing today? Okay. Of course, the most common answer would be, yes, of course, Zarathustra wore the kasti. How can you not wear this kasti that we are wearing? So then I try to make them understand that, look, Adurbad was 500 or 400 years after Christ. If Zarathustra was 1500 years before Christ, that's 2000 years between the two of them. How did Zarathustra know that Adurbad was going to come and canonize that ceremony with 72 hours? So there is no way Zarathustra could have worn this kasti that you and I wear today in his days. Not possible. You can believe what you like to believe, but you can deduce by logic also that it could not have happened. So now I got into trouble doing that. A couple of days after that class of mine, a mother called me up and says, Firdosh, what did you teach my son? He came home and said, Mommy, I'm not going to wear the kasti anymore because Firdosh uncle taught us that Zarathustra did not wear the kasti. So why should I wear the kasti? Oh, I didn't know I was going to get into that trouble. So I told the mother, don't pick on the child, don't say anything. Just let it be. In the next class, I'll try and clarify it. And this is why I'm talking to you today in this way about how I do the parting of knowledge to the children, which also includes decision-making in terms of the right direction. So I came home and asked my wife, can you tell me if you have a nice white scarf or something like this? And I went to the ribbon store and purchased some ribbons and made some kind of a design like this. and put it on and took it to the next class. And in the next class, I told everybody, okay, last time we talked about wearing the kasti, but Zarathustra could not have worn the kasti. I gave you all the understanding at that time that in the days of Zarathustra, and this is even mentioned in the Gathas, when nobody kind of accepts Zarathustra's message in his own town, village, city, whatever, he decides to go out and spread his religion somewhere else. And he tells his father, I'm going to leave town. And his cousin, Maidyoma, was the only first disciple that he had who was willing to go with him. His father asked him, son, take whatever I have from my possessions, which you would have got later on anyways, as inheritance, and that's fine with me. And Zarathustra tells his father, Aurushaspa, no, Dad, I really don't want any of these. What were the possessions in those days? You can't take land. It had to be cows, goats, sheep, horses, camels, that kind of stuff. And he said, no, I want your kamarband. I want what you're wearing around your waist. Remember, this is what the concept of a kamarband or a waist is, an object of discipline and commitment to a cause. That is when, please understand, when economic times hit hard and it is tough for people to make ends meet, we even use the saying, we have to tighten our belt. Where does that come from? Tightening your belt is establishing better commitment and better discipline. So this is what happened in his time, and that is why I showed this scarf. And the next time I went over there, okay, I have something for you guys. And I pulled out this scarf that was made, and I said, who wants to demonstrate this scarf? Just like you see the picture of Zarathustra on the wall. Luckily, a young lady, girl got up, Ariana. She says, Firdosh uncle, I'd like to try. Oh, I said, sure, dear. And she put it on. And I was so happy that day that a girl wanted to get up and do it, because I wanted to project to the children that as far as Zarathustra's spiritual philosophy and spiritual life is concerned, there is absolutely no difference between genders. A boy and a girl. Notice that is why we also do our Navjot ceremony to boys and girls just about exactly the same. But nothing is missed out from the recital, etc. If you look at other faiths, like in Hinduism, they have the Janoi or Upanayam ceremony, like the thread ceremony that we have, but they do it only to boys, and that to Brahmin boys. Not every male in the Hindu system gets it. Whereas in our system, for thousands of years, we have done this. Men and women, boys and girls have been treated equally when it comes to spirituality. And of course, we have all kinds of differences. We recognize that. That's no big deal. I cannot breastfeed a child. That is a difference, but that is not important from the point of view of spirituality. So this is important. And when I showed them the child, so I told them, okay, from now on, you have to decide. You have a choice. Either you take this kasti that we talked about and wear it on your waist and tuck it inside your shirt or blouse and go to school. And now you can play all kinds of games, soccer, baseball, basketball, whatever. Or you wear this kind of scarf around your waist, go to school every day and play your basketball, any kind of sport with this sash, with you, and then kind of hanging from your waist. I left it for the children to decide. And I'm telling you, when you let people think about themselves to what they want to do with the proper data, homework, analysis, you will be amazed how the same answers will come. A couple of days, 3 days later, the mother calls me back and says, I don't know what you told my son, but he has started to wear the kasti again. So then I talk about the Amesha spenders. This is a very interesting concept in our religion, right from the Gathas. Of course, a lot of later interpretation is done, but the basic is there. Now, in many ways, you can talk about what is religion. Nobody can answer that question in one sentence. It's a very, very complex thing, complex term involving so many human emotions, values, occurrences, etc., etc. But one of the most common threads in all religious belief, as against non-religious belief, is the concept of an entity that is superhuman, but achievable through our connection through the soul. The soul is the concept that was brought about to connect the material world to the spiritual world. Otherwise, there is no way you can get those together. And what is then becomes an important the soul is the salvation or moksha or nirvana, whatever you want to name it. And that means that each soul yearns, tries, wants to be one with the entity that is the super entity that we define it maybe slightly differently. For us, it is infinite intellectual wisdom, as Aura Mazda, and so on. But all of us, all religions teach us and give us a path of how to be one with God, whether it is through reincarnation, whether it is through one life, whether it is through this or that, but all of them have that. So what is that in our religion? This is our religion. Please don't get hung up on good thoughts, good words, good deeds. That's a very simplistic way of looking at any religion. Every religion teaches you good thoughts, good words, good deeds. We don't have a patent on it. Show me one good religion that says, that teaches you bad thoughts, bad words, bad deeds. Where is the difference? The difference is in the path we choose for ourselves out freely to be one with our Creator. And this path, as described by Zarathustra, goes step by step. By first, you start on the bottom with Vomana, which is the best gift of God to a human being, and that is mind. Now you use that good mind and with your spenta menu or your mentality, faculty of mental thought practice. So you can have intelligent comprehension. If you don't understand what is right or wrong, how are you going to choose the right? And move to Ashavahishta, best truth, then spenta armati. Or now that you achieve the understanding of truth, you show your devotion to it with commitment to prayers, good acts. So you see, prayers become important as part of the whole process. This step-by-step process. Next one is Shatravarya, where you get the divine protection from other people who may think bad things about you. But you know, once they know what kind of person you are, they kind of leave you alone, don't mess around with you. But you move to perfection. And the last level from perfection is immortality, Amaritat, which is where you become one with awareness. These steps that you follow are represented in the physical forms in vegetation, water, sky, but we seem to focus on those physical things more than the spiritual methodology. And you will be amazed. I teach this to my 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old kids, and they can understand. There is no harm. If you want to teach your children gathas, this is one of the simplest things you can teach. You don't have to teach it all in one day. You can take a couple of these concepts per class and then develop in 3 or 4 classes to come to the top. I am confident to tell you, because in Dubai, when I was there, the local young lady, very nice lady, told me, Firdosh uncle, I heard you're in town. Can you please take my Sunday class? I said, sure, dear. What do you want me to teach the kids? She said, I want you to say something about the gathas. I said, what is the age that you want me to talk to? She said, oh, I don't know. We have so much dispersed as kids, 5, 6 years old to 15, 16. And I said, you want me to talk about gathas to a 6-year-old? She says, yes, uncle, do your best. So I emailed my daughter in Texas, Sherazad, please send me this homework slide that I had made in the classes that she sent me this slide. I sat down and talked and taught the children how to understand these step-by-step methods. And Sherazad even asked me, how are you going to teach immortality to an 8-year-old? I said, don't worry, I will muddle through. So then when we came to that, I
Excuse the interruption, Firdosh. Just wanted to give you a 5-minute warning before question period, and it's lovely. We're getting questions already. So sorry for the interruption.
Okay, when I talk about the golden rule, bring the concept of all other faiths having certain commonness, and that is to treat others as you would like to be treated. Then I bring in some concept of humor, fun stuff, and I put this up on the screen, and everybody starts to go he and laugh, which is just Control Alt Delete, and you can start all over again if life was so easy. Then I have these kind of cartoons that I put up. Oh, master, is it proper for a monk to use an email? And remember, in Buddhist philosophy, you have to devoid yourself of any earthly attachments. So the teacher answers, sure, as long as there are no attachments. Now, this is the important part that I want to discuss as brain teasers. I want my kids to think. Get your gears going. Don't listen to somebody blindly and follow like sheep and jump off the cliff. So this is one of the best examples I have. I give them this puzzle of the gold coin of Alexander. On one side, I tell them there is the face of Alexander with his name in Greek and the date written as 321 BC. And on the other side, there is the picture of the Parthenon and the word Greece. The question is, I come to you and tell you, hey, I'm your good friend, you are so kind to me. I will sell you this coin for half the price. Question is, would you buy it? Yes, why? If not, why not? Of course, you would not buy this coin if it's a fake, because any coin collector knows that there is no sense in collecting fake coins. So from the information that I give them, that you see yourself, can anybody tell me if this coin is genuine or is it fake? In terms of the time, I'll move along to say that it is a fake. Why is it a fake? Because the date of 321 BC is not wrong from what we know. But how did, during the time of Alexander, 300 years before Christ, did they know that Christ was going to come 300 years afterwards? So this coin has to be a fake. The concept of BC and AC happened after Christ. Before Christ, there was no such thing as BC in those days of timing and calendars. So you see how I want my children to sort of challenge the concepts that are put forth in front of them and try to prove it in their own mind and heart what is right for them. And you'll be amazed how they get the right answer. Then I talk about Cyrus. This is the homework that was done by a boy in the Dallas area class, and he made a replica of the Cyrus cylinder by photocopy, and it looks so neat. But I'll share it with you. Here is the reference of Cyrus, and the Greek historian Herodotus. I just put this in because he was born in Halicarnassus, which is actually in those days was a Persian satrapy. So when Herodotus was born, he was a Persian subject. Also on top of Cyrus is the Egyptian crown to show that many of the Achaemenid kings, Cyrus, Darius, Xerxes, were also pharaohs in Egypt because they had conquered Egypt. So then at that time, this hieroglyphic language became very important. So I wanted my children to learn a little bit about this. So I gave them all this language legend, or what does all the alphabet stand for, in pictures. And I told them to write their name in this little rectangular shaped thing called the cartouche. And in there, you can write your name down. So if your name is Ava, you use A as this bird, draw the bird, and V as this bird, like that, and you make your name. Just for getting interested in it. Then here is the tomb of Cyrus that I talk about, and the investiture of the Sassanid emperor. On the left side, the picture in the carving with the rays of the sun is that of Mitra, or Meher, as we call the sun. Of course, a lot of the people now have misunderstood this picture to be a representation of Zarathustra. Of course, you have to understand, these are all symbolic pictures. Nobody had Kodak or Panasonic in those days to take a picture of Zarathushta or anybody. So these are all symbolic representations. And this is one of the biggest errors we do. Then I talk about Darius, many great things that were done by him. He was one of the most successful rulers that we had. And what he came up was the concept of the Pony Express, or the horse and the rider, the couriers would take the messages to all parts of the kingdom. And this is part of his inscription on his tomb. Neither snow nor rain or heat that is and check our riders from the appointed. These words of Darius or Darius or Daryavahush, these words are inscribed into the front panel of the main post office in New York City. This is how far Darius has come to our life. Then he built the Persepolis Palace, which was, he started it, Xerxes completed it in their days, and it became one of the greatest palaces and structural entities in the world. On your right is a little bit of recreated image to make you understand what it would have looked like in those days. Then I do talk about Darius as part of the Marathon, where after the battle with the Greeks in the plains of Marathon, the Persian forces lost. The Greek soldier Phidippides was given the task to run to the Senate and announce the defeat of the Persians. He came there and he said, he won the battle, and he collapsed and died because of exhaustion. After we ran that distance, which is even today, we run exactly that same distance in an Olympic marathon. Children love to understand these kind of connections, that how we are involved and what happened. And then there is Xerxes, his name in Egyptian. And although Herodotus had created certain debates, when you look at the reliefs in their tombs and the inscriptions on them, the best way to note that they are Mazda Yasni is Achaemenid kings, is they all say, I, Xerxes, I, Darius, so and so, ruler of this, king of that, Shah of that, I am this great, that great, and I am king at the glory and benevolence of Ahura Mazda. They become the human representation of Ahura Mazda on earth. And once they use the term Ahura Mazda, I don't have a problem accepting that they are Mazda Yasni. Then there's,
sorry again to interrupt. We're 5 minutes to the hour, and I know there's some people who need to leave at 4, so I want to make sure there's time for people to ask you questions.
I can stop here and take the questions, and after questions, if anybody wants to hang around to continue, I will. Otherwise, we can end the session.
That would be great. Yeah. So if you could maybe unshare your screen so that we can see everybody's faces, that would be great. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear from you. I have to say, there's been a request for you to share your slides. Do you feel comfortable sharing them with the teachers?
Well, now it's already in the hands of the organizers of the program.
And so are you comfortable with the organizers?
It is not in my hands anymore. I personally, out of experience, do not like to put my stuff on the internet to anybody and everybody, because I've had seriously bad reactions, and I don't do it. But now it is in the hands of today's organizers. It is their baby. They can do what they want to do.
But I think they would probably respect your wishes, right? So Artemis, I would think if Firdosh does not want to share his slides,
to me, the best thing to do would be to give it to those who request it, because those are the interesting people. You put it on the internet, it goes to 50,000 people, and many of them don't even understand. And I've got very, very vulgar, bad worded comments, and who told you this and who told you that kind of stuff. And I have always mentioned today also that this is not something that you take as gospel truth from me. Think about it yourself. The teachers can also decide, and if they want any of these other slides that I just use one, I have a whole program, like I mentioned, the whole PowerPoint. Any of them say, I would like to take the next session on Rustam and Sorab, I can send you that file.
Lovely.
But to me,
Great offer.
I like to send it to people that are focusedly interested, not
Perfect.
a general free-for-all.
Great. So I guess then would you mind if we share your email and then people can email you directly to ask for them?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So Artemis, if we could do that, that would be great. So the other question was, you put a question out to us and you never answered it. You said, who is the person to the left of the image with Zarathustra? There's been some guesses, but you never answered the question.
I did not answer because I wanted you guys to answer.
So the guesses have
I wanted to come to the QA stage and complete the program instead of spending time there. So you still want to know who that person was?
well, there are a couple of guesses. They're the same person. So Farhad, do you want to say what your guess is?
No, my dear, we don't do things by guess. We have to. We are Zarathushtis. Nowhere does our Bhata say
I'm just going off.
you cannot have good thoughts, good words, good deeds, and good guesses.
Well, how about Farhad, if you wanted to share your answer, and then there, Kaizad approved his answer as well. So there were two who said the same answer.
Good, very good.
Okay.
My understanding is it's Kailoras, father of Kaivishtas.
Yes, Farhad, you are right. And if you don't know, I don't understand who else can know. I expect you to know, Farhad, and thank you very much. He is the father of Vishtas, of the same dynasty as Vishtas the king, during whose time Zarathustra brought the message to his kingdom. His father Loras, by that time, had abdicated the throne or given it to his son and moved into kind of a retirement where they did spiritual understanding, and he became a very good friend of Zarathustra. His son Estandyar was the one charged to spread the message of Zarathustra in their kingdom. So we at least know, and this the great part of our prayers when we pray, and we remember all these wonderful people from the past as we try to say the name of the person and the name of the father. So when you pray Vishta's name, you say Vishtas and Loras. Now you know who his father is, and that kind of thing. Okay, go ahead.
So especially for those who mentioned they need to leave by 4, I wanted to make sure if you have a question, please put it into the chat box or just use the raise hand option. So if I were to use it, this is what would happen, and then I would end up being at the top of the list. So feel free to ask your questions before you have to leave. And as people think about that, Firdosh, I really liked how you started by saying you include the concepts of diversity, equity, and inclusion in what you are teaching. Did we?
Yes, yes.
Oh, there we go. Okay, we just lost your video.
Because I closed it. I didn't want you to see what I was doing.
Great. And so as you were speaking, you were mentioning various ways that you're using that concept of inclusion, right? You mentioned that you emphasize that there's no difference between the Setapushir Naujut ceremonies of girls and boys. Yes. So I'm curious, how else do you teach diversity, equity, and inclusion in your classes?
One of the biggest diversity issues that we have is to understand to whom is the religion of Zarathustra available. In other words, who can or cannot be a Zarathushti if he or she wants to. Now you have to understand that in India, we have adopted a different line of understanding, right or wrong, good or bad, I'm not here to judge. But it was done primarily for our survival. It was important and necessary to protect our assets and community properties. Therefore, the concept of the word Parsi came about. Of course, the word Parsi was there long time ago, but it is now used to make you understand that as a Parsi, you meet certain requirements, like you have to come from a continuous line of Parsi fathers, you have to be doing your Sudra Pushi, or you have to do your Naujot, and your Naujot also has to be done by an ordained model. Not any Tom, Dick, and Harry can do your Naujot. This is what they believe. And it is not just that they believe, it is now enshrined as law in India. There is a 1908 court case that entrench this concept. And this is how we as a very tiny community got protection for our assets and our schools, colleges, whatever. Not that we did not share it with others. We did, but not all of it. Some of it is for our use only. So please understand, especially the religious places like Agyaris, Atas, Beram, like we say, and this was just for our protection over there. But the philosophy of Zarathustra is universal. Anyone and everyone can become a Zarathusti by their own free will, provided they have the calling, the commitment, the learning, the knowledge, so that if they don't know what to be committed to, they better learn about it. And this is how the diversity comes, that therefore anybody and everybody is equal. Now, we also talk about diversity, like I mentioned to you about the golden rule and what happens to it. And I have run into this problem. Some people, you have to understand, Mankur, my dear, I'm sure you know that here we have a very large majority of Iranian Zarathushtis as compared to Zarathushtis from India or any other part of Parsi. And therefore, very common thinking is very different over here. We have people who absolutely follow the Fasli calendar for all the Gambars, festivals, Tirgan, Mergan, where the people from India don't know what it's all about because they follow the Shanjai calendar. They do their Pravardegan or Muqad prayers at the end of the year, which comes in August. And these are just tricks of fate, history upon us because of loss of intercalation and the calendar is going skewed. There's nothing bad or wrong about it. Yes, we could all agree and say that we should become one and follow one calendar, which is no doubt in northern hemisphere, the Fasli calendar is the proper calendar to follow with all the due festivals and other things that are involved. And in fact, next month, I'm going to give a talk through the North American Morbid Council on Rapitwan Gha, the day or Gha as we call them, in Rapitwan, the second one after Havan. And this is how we are trying to include diversity by talking about different areas of community. And I've even talked about, researched a whole bunch of things as requested by some people in my class. Why don't we talk about Mother's Day? What does our religion say about Mother's Day? Well, I looked and could not find really something that is typically Mother's Day only. But I gathered information about how every religion looks upon Mother as an entity, how it is even related to Mother Earth, how it is related to Motherland, and a whole bunch of other concepts that go from religion to religion, society to society, culture to culture, and the festivals and rejoicing and etc. that is done for them.
Great. So you actually use these specific examples in your class.
Yes.
Very good.
In fact, I even use the example of in North America, you have Mother's Day and Father's Day. In India, we have Brother's Day and Sister's Day.
Excellent.
We call it the Bhai Beej and Raksha Bandhan and all that. But that comes from the Hindu system. If we are, when it comes to fun and partying, Zarathushtis are second to none. We can rejoice 365 New Year days in the whole year if someone had that. Because we are people of fun and joy and happiness. This is our main. Remember our greeting also, Uchtate. What does our greeting Uchtate tell you? Happiness to you.
Very nice.
We greet each other with that.
Very nice. So Artemis John, I know I'm over time, so I want to pass it on to you if you wanted to close it. And I don't see any raised hands or any more questions in the question and answers.
Thank you so much, Triti Jan. I really appreciate your help and your time. It's always good to see you. Afri, thank you very much. Always good to see you. And Firdosh, thank you very much for the educational talk. And thank you everyone for joining. We hope to see you at the next talk. And always thanks to Arzan for being there for us.
Arzan,
thank you on behalf of myself and Loveji.
If you want to continue for a few minutes, I don't mind. And if you want to shut it down, I don't mind. Those who want to leave can leave on their own. This is a free country.
The formal part of the talk is over, so we'll leave it open if people want to just hang around and chit chat. Absolutely. Why not?
Well, I do have some slides to show, but it's okay. We can even chit chat.
Sure. So we can go ahead. Sure.
You're the boss. You tell me.
Yeah, I'm okay. Whatever you wish. It's open now. So go ahead, please.
Okay, so after talking about the calendar and showing that it's a solar calendar, not a lunar calendar, the important thing is that I try to emphasize in our system is that we have 30 different names of the 30 different days of the calendar and the 12 months. The awesome part of this is that every day is named after a good creation of Aura Mazda or any other human aspect that is for the good side. We have the good mind, we have perfection, we have justice, we have friendship, we have loyalty, or we have water, we have sky, we have fire, we have earth. You understand? There is no such a thing as bad day in our understanding. All days are good. It is you and I, we the human beings, can make anything bad or good depending on our mind. So this is the explanation I gave to people about how the seasons are created because of the tilt of the axis when the earth goes around the sun, and therefore we have the two equinoxes, spring equinox, autumn equinox, and we have the two solstices. So when the sun appears to go from the southern hemisphere and passes the equator, it comes to an equinox. This becomes a swing because now in the northern hemisphere, you will have spring. Then at summer solstice, it goes back down. Second time it comes to the equator to get the second equinox, which is the autumn equinox. And then goes down to winter. And on the winter solstice, it can come up. So these are the four, Tirgan, Nowruz, Mergan, Yalda, that we rejoice during these days. This is basically the Wesley calendar or a few modifications of it. But in the northern hemisphere, this is what works. Of course, if you go to the southern hemisphere, everything would be the other way around. Then we enjoy Nowruz by setting up the Hafsini table. And I'm sure there are a lot of programs that teachers can talk to their students about Nowruz. Then we have the Maidios Rem mid-spring Gambar, when flowers and vegetation comes up, a very colorful time of the year. I also use the books like this. I have them in my library and at my home, called the Royal Persian Manuscripts, the King's Book of Kings, which is like the Shahnameh. And I use these as my reference books. And here is a picture of the statue of the famous Shahnameh poet Firdosh. He was from the town of Tus, why he's known as Firdosh to see. From there, which is in part of modern day, the Georgian Republic of the previous Soviet. Then I have all these 10 stories from the Shahnameh. I have my own PowerPoints that I have developed over time. And we have stories like this with Zal and Simorg. And then there is Rustam and Sorab. And I have Sorab and Godafrid. This is the thing that the girls become very proud of, because this is to show that even Godafrid was a very strong warrior and was able to have a battle with Sorab, and her helmet fell off, and that's when he found out she was a girl, etc., etc. The similar concept is in India with the story of Varyav, where the women from Varyav also in a battle with the local Rajputs, king's army, and the helmet fell off, etc. And this is the story about Arash, the archer. In those days, archery or shooting an arrow as far as possible was used to demarcate the borderline between countries. And Arash was the famous archer who could send his bow farthest compared to others. And he was involved at one time between the war between Turan and Iran to decide the border without. But all of these stories are wonderful, and they are stories. They don't have to be history, but they could be. I have no evidence to say they are yes, they are or no. But the most important thing I want with everything, including the Gatha, is what are the lessons we learn? What are the morals we learn? What do we adopt in our life? So with every Shahnameh program, at the end, 2-3 slides I have is when I ask the questions about what did you learn from this? And this is one of the slides that I use from Zal. I don't know if you are aware, but Zal was the child who was like an albino. He did not have skin pigmentation, and he was left by his father in the forest, and the mythical Simurgh birds looked after him, and he grew under their care. And the father later on learned the lesson that he could not have done that and took his son back. So here is one of the lessons that is known from this story, is that one is very unfortunate in life. One must be, even when you are, one must be kind-hearted and to face all difficulties. This is to make us use our good mind, O Mana, and not become so arrogant that one harms a child, rather than work to find a cure for this condition. No one has to go through this unfortunate situation. This is where our knowledge, application of knowledge, experimentation, etc., comes to remove the misery, suffering, pain, etc. Then I use this, if anybody wants to write it down, go ahead. This is shahnameh.com, www. It's a very good website from where I can get a lot of this Shahnameh information. Wikipedia is one other stuff. I read, like I showed you, those Persian books that I have from that. So you have to research more than one source to know that some degree of stability comes out of it. And here are some homework things that I gave to the children. Then I talk about the Pravahar and the Lamasu or the winged bull. I actually start introducing art. And this is the two-dimensional art of that time, where the carving comes out of the wall. It is not like a statue, it is not three-dimensional. But I want you to pay attention that even though we will focus on this big Pravahar up here, if you look at the bottom, there is that little bit of earliest Egyptian Pravahar. This is the Egyptian, what they used to call the depiction of the sun god Ra. The sun, and the wings were always put on. Any kind of thing they wanted to depict, which was heavenly, you have to look up. When you look up, what do you see? You see birds, they have wings. So if you attach wings to any of your concepts, suddenly it becomes heavenly. Then there is this Lamasu that comes from the Assyrian court areas of their palaces. This is also a fresco or two-dimensional art. So you see this wall in the back. But there is a limitation to this art. It is not very advanced, meaning that if you look at that from the front, from this side, you will see the two legs. If you see it from the side, you will see 4 legs. But if you see it from the center, the middle like this, like you see in the picture, you see 5 legs. And that is wrong. There is no 5 legs. So this is the weakness of that kind of art, which later on was developed into the three-dimensional statue. And then I talk about the connection of the 3 wise men with Christianity and how we are connected to that. This is a few activities that we do. Here is the pantomime we did about the nativity scene with the 3 wise men and the star. This is in our Darbamere. And these were the children who were dressed up to play the pantomime. We do plays and songs and all that kind of stuff. You have to understand these are very young children, so they do the best they can. And then
Firdosh, you have to share the sound. We don't hear anything.
we're not hearing this?
No, we don't hear anything. You have to share the sound.
Hear the sound. What my sound is on.
On top, I can't see it now to tell you, but on top there's an option. Afrit, can you help him, please?
Yeah, I'm trying to see on my screen where it
Can you
would
hear
be,
it
but
now?
I don't have it.
It's
It's
not
on this little bar. You have a little bar that shows up on your screen, or horizontal bar. On there, it should be under audio. Or under
Yeah.
share screen, you'll see a little arrow. Click on the arrow.
He would have to unshare screen, go in and click on the Zoom
Anyway,
to share sound and then reshare
yeah,
screen.
that's
That's the only
okay.
it will work.
Let's move on. What I have wanted to show here is I was able to get this karaoke type program where they talk about looking after the planet and how you protect the creations, how you be wise, and you have to do it now. That is important, and it is to be not neglected and all. That is why I use that kind of I gotta get out.
I think Afrit has a question. Go ahead, Afrit.
Firdosh, I wanted to ask you about the handouts that you are talking, where you talk about the calendar and the cycle of the 365 days, because I teach kids who are around 11 years old, and I notice that every time I get this class of kids, and in the syllabus it says talk about the different calendars, and I do that, talking about the rotation of the sun and why it's significant, the June 21st, September 21st, December 21st, and then March 21st, and talking about the seasons and how they change and everything. Unfortunately, the kids at the age of 11 do not study this in science class. I remember we studied it in high school in grade 9, but the class that I'm teaching, they haven't studied it as yet. So I noticed that I'm always having to teach a science lesson while I'm trying to teach them about the calendar, because they don't understand how the calendar works on the Gregorian side itself, to then try and get them to understand how we did 30 days for 12 months and how it does not link up with, the 365 days over the course of 1 year on the Gregorian side. So I'm just interested in seeing what it is that you teach to your class kids, and then how old your class kids are, and do they already know the science behind the regular calendar?
Okay, I can answer that. I also introduce the science. How I introduce the science? I take a table lamp or some source of light, put it on a small stool in the middle of the room, and I take a little bit bigger elderly child with bigger mass, and then a little child. The little child is the moon. The elderly child is the earth. And then I show them that while the moon is rotating around the earth, which means now I have the little boy run around the big boy is running around the sun. So you see the little boy goes round and round many times while the big boy goes around the sun once. This is how I give them an understanding of the lunar side and the solar side. Having done that, we know that it takes 365 and a quarter days. There is no difference between any of our calendars, 3 calendars, when it comes to 12 months, 30 days, what are their names, and the 5 days of the Gata. That's identical. The only place where we are different is in that quarter day, in the intercalation of the quarter day, which can be done as one day every 4 years, approximately, which makes it the leap day of the leap year. But in our ancient tradition, which is also, by the way, part of the Vedic tradition of the Hindus, we used to have this 365 days and miss out the quarter day and not do the one day every 4 years, because we added 30 days every 120 years. Why? Because 30 days was 1 month. So we intercalated a month rather than a day. Intercalation of the month was missed after the Arab invasion, the loss of control of, and we had to run away, come to India, settle down. At that time, we were all worried about survival and living. Yeah, making a living, how to survive. Who was worried about intercalation? What happened? And the calendar started slipping because of that. So every 120 years, we forgot to add a month. Another 120 years, we forgot to add another month. And it happened continuously till we ended up having what we have today. Now, just so you know, this is my understanding, my reading. How did we get the Kadimi calendar or Kadimi calendar? This is the third calendar. We have Kadmis in India. We have Kadimi calendar was very important in Iran. They used to all follow that. Yeah. Now I want to digress, but give you the idea of how this intercalation messed us up. In those days, in the 1400s, 1500s, we used to have things called revayats, where the Indian Mobeds would ask questions to the Iranian Mobed Council and get answers from them. What shall we do this? How can we do this ceremony? Do we have to put the water in this ceremony? That kind of stuff. So all those answers, and by the way, we have an English translation of all the revayats in our library. If you want, it's available. I think you can get.
It's online now,
Yeah,
Firdosh.
now
Yeah, it's on the
Avesta,
internet.
No, avesta.org. But you see, that is such a thick book. It will take you days on the internet. It is very convenient to have that book in your hand and sit in. Cup of coffee as well as read. Anyways, that's the old style. What I'm trying to get at over here is during this Revayat time, one of the set of answers came from Iran by a Mobed who came from there named Velayati. And he came to Surat, because Surat was the main Indian Parsi Zoroastrian stronghold. Nobody knew much about Navsari or anything, which Surat were the main place. So that guy came to help them understand these answers and help them how to set up the ceremony and what to do, what not to do. He comes here and sees these guys in Surat setting up the Muqtad and said, hey, what are you guys trying to do? Because those were the Fravardigan days according to that calendar, the last 2 days of the year. He said, no, I finished my Muqtad in Iran before coming here. That's why I couldn't come early. So that's when we found out that the Iranian people also missed certain months, but they missed 1 month less. That is why their so-called Iranian Nowruz comes earlier than the Shanshai Nowruz. But then later on in Iran, when during the time of the Shah, when they decided for all of them to come down to Fasli, they came up with this Bini Sal calendar, which is like the Fasli calendar with better intercalation. There is now a calendar that Fariboz Ranamun is going to talk to us about in one of the programs, which is even better than that, where you don't need to intercalate that for hundreds and thousands of years. But it's a very complicated mathematical system. But there is nothing complicated nowadays with computers. We got mainframe computers can do any math, going to space and coming back. So that is possible. But this is how we ended up getting so many different calendars. It is only the intercalation of the missed quarter day every year. Otherwise, everything is the same. Now, the Gregorian calendar, of course, it is that the same issue. And before it became Pope Gregory's calendar, it was the Julian calendar. Julius Caesar set it up. And there at that time, the 10th month of the year is December, decimal. Non-November, October, September. Those were the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th month. Suddenly December became the 12th month when Gregory moved the date from the Ides of March, which was the first month, and he made January the 1st. But it doesn't matter. It still ended up being number of days of 365 plus an extra day every 2 years. We can do that. It is already done in some areas, and there is a name for that called Avardat Salga, which is the addition of one more Hormuz rose after every 4 years. But our problem is not of understanding things. We are smart enough to know what is what and figure it out. Our problem is, how do we get united to come together and say, okay, fellas, from next 1st of March, 21st of March, all of us will follow this. For this, we don't have a Mobedan Mobed like Adurbad Maraspan during the Sasanian times, where if you did not listen to him, your head would be on a plate.
Firdosh, someone wants to know the name of the song you were going to play. Can you share the name of the song you were going to play with us?
Yes, I can try to. This was just a last slide showing our class. And this is, we celebrate Canada Day in the yard of the Darbymayor with my kids over there. And the lady next to me was the president at that time. Today, she is vice president with me on the committee. So there is the name of that song. This was a website, web address. I don't know. I can't seem to get that web address on. Maybe it is at the tail end of the song. I'll find it, and Artemis, I will email it to you.
Yeah, Nina, I'll send it your way after I get it.
It is, by the way, it is also on YouTube.
So if you have maybe the YouTube link, it would be easier for Nina to access. So maybe you can send us the YouTube link if
I
possible.
understand, and I'll try to do that.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Firdosh. Thank you, Arzan, for being the host. And we hope to see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.